Testing, testing, 1, 2, 3.
Okay, has any apologies from the floor? I've only got ones from Alderman Tinsley and Councillor O'Dowd. Alderman Mitry.
Okay, can I apologise on behalf of Alderman Greenfield, please, but he hopes to be along later, but just in case he's not.
Alderman Berry.
Thank you. Councillor Ratcliffe was meeting the Minister with Councillor Flaherty, so he's unable to attend.
Okay, are we happy to just take declarations of interest as we go along then? Yep. Okay, so we're on to agenda item 3, so 3.1. I'm going to go to Elizabeth for that.
Yep, thank you, Chair. Good evening, members. This is a decision item around our elected member age-friendly champions. Members were updated on the council age-friendly strategy and the action plan back in October. And tonight, as we move to the next stage of the age-friendly chapter, we consider that it'd be beneficial to have additional representation from our elected members, really to shape the next stage of the regional strategy and to represent the borough. As you know, age friendly is very much about partnership working and working together, and it's based on local people and what really matters in their lives. So we considered that commitment to engaging with people in a meaningful way is achieved through our elected members. As such, the decision tonight and the recommendation to members is that we agree for elected member age-friendly champions, and that the chair and the deputy chair of the Environmental Services Committee act in this role to support the current champions of the Lord Mayor and Deputy Mayor during the remainder of the existing age-friendly strategy and action plan, and as the new regional strategy is prepared. Thank you, Chair.
So I need a proposer and a seconder for this one. Alderman Barr.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. And it's good to be back in the Environmental Services Department here. It's been a couple of years out, so great to be back. But yeah, happy to propose the recommendation accordingly, but equally to could we look at the current strategy as we're moving out of it into 2025 as a whole, invite our stakeholders to see what they think. How did it go? Could we do things better? Because then that will help us move forward into the next stage of producing the next strategy. But happy to propose. I think it's probably the more the better to be able to help feed into that. And thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Alderman Barr, and Alderman Mitry.
Thank you, Chair. Happy to second the proposal.
Okay, if there's no other questions, we'll go on to 3.2, which we will need a proposer and a seconder for, and that's the draft response to the Department of Health consultation to inform the development of a new public health bill. And we'll go to Elizabeth again.
Yes, thank you, Chair. This again is a decision item, and the Department of Health is consulting on public health legislation and is seeking views really on the provisions to be included in a new public health bill. You will note in the paper that it sets out some of the current inadequacies or deficiencies that are in the 1967 Act, and as you will note, even from the date of that, is getting a little antiquated. So tonight the proposal is that members agree to the draft response, which has been agreed regionally by EHNI, which is Environmental Health Northern Ireland, on the new health protection legislation to really bring the whole legislative framework up to date. You will note in the paper that any financial commitment that Council needs to provide to this should be considered by the Department of Health. Thank you, Chair.
So I need a proposer and a seconder for this one. Alderman Berry and Councillor McClelland. Thank you. So on to 3.3, which is the report on the food service plan for 24-25. I need a proposer and a seconder for this one again, and I'll go back to Elizabeth.
Yes, thank you, Chair. So this is an annual decision that is brought in front of members. The Food Standards Agency requires each competent authority to have an up-to-date documented food service plan. The food service plans includes a review of last year's service plan as well during the 23-24 period, and it sets out how the department hope to implement all the requirements for this year. So it is recommended that members review and approve the draft food service plan for 24-25, which is in the appendix. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, can I get a proposer and a seconder for this one? Yep. Councillor Hockin, you want to come in as well? Yeah.
No, it's just a proposed, Chair. Thank you.
Anyone second?
Happy to second, Chair.
Okay, so items 3.4 and 3.5 are information items. If we don't have any questions and you're happy to move on. Oh, well, we're lighting up like a Christmas tree here.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, just sort of reading through the 3.4 there regarding the flooding event. You know, it would have been fantastic. There are 31 agencies. I know this committee's probably already talked it to death by now, and I know there's a lot of members here from the Portdown area that were greatly affected, but you know, when you have 31 stakeholders there, it would have been fantastic to see some of them in Banbridge whenever the railway inn was being flooded and the water was rushing into it. Nobody would pick up the phone. Likewise, businesses in Craigavon beside the towpath where the canal is were being flooded. Nobody would pick the phone up. So it'd be great to know who, I know there's a number there, but it'd be great to know when you phone that number, who's going to pick the phone up rather than being diverted to about 50 different people that are never going to answer the phone or get back to you. So it's all well being good and have these stakeholder meetings, but it would be great to be able to feed into those meetings to say, hang on a second, you have 41 councillors here and probably the MLAs and the MPs also were being deeply affected by the amount of calls that we were receiving. Excuse me, not so much from some of the areas. Banbridge didn't get as badly affected by or impacted as other areas, as I've already previously said, but we were affected. But it would have been great to be able to feed into that, to say, you know, we need to be able to feed into who is going to come out and put in sandbags. Where do they get the sandbags from in the first place? Whenever the water is rising and rising and rising, nobody will come near the place. And this is, and using Banbridge, hours upon hours and hours all through the night. Not one agency went near it. I think the fire brigade ended up going because they were close by and they were able to start pumping it, but not one of them 31 agencies I get near, say, turned up to help with sandbags. Members, will you be able to get sandbags to your areas? Probably all being diverted to Portadown or some areas, but I can tell you what, they won't being diverted to Banbridge or Craigavon, where businesses are still trying to find out who do they report it to. Still, and that was last year, they still can't get a response. Who do they contact when this happens again? If you look at Craigavon, the locks needed opening. Nobody knew who to contact to get them opened. Even to this day, we're still waiting on a response from DFI Rivers or whoever. Who do they contact if it happens again to get the locks open so that the water will go straight through, rather than building up and then flooding the businesses in around Craigavon and further afield? And that's probably what happened on up the river or on up the canal in Portadown, because the locks weren't being opened. Nobody knew who'd open them or how to open them. But I'll leave it with you, and maybe you can pass that on. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Barr. I'm just going to take everyone else's comments before I let Gillian come in here, because I'm pretty sure they're all going to be of the same topic. Going to Councillor McConville Walker then.
Thank you, Chair, and good luck in your term as Chair of this committee. Well done so far. So I obviously myself and Councillor Duffy did a lot of work with people in the Portadown area during the flooding, and it is really good to see this report. So I do welcome it and the detail in it. In particular, like a focus on the Portadown area, as Alderman Barr has alluded to, the issue with sandbags. Yes, Portadown was able to get sandbags, but there weren't enough. So I'm glad to see there's a recommendation in there to review how the sandbags are stockpiled and distributed, etc. Also particularly glad to see the recommendation to progress the existing floodplain alleviation scheme in Portadown. But I'm wondering about the funding for the works, if it's already been budgeted. And if it hasn't been, obviously that wouldn't be part of the budget and through the Assembly at the moment. And would Council be writing to the Secretary of State, Hilary Benn, who, as you know, visited the area just in the aftermath, to ask that the funding for that be prioritised? And the other one, I'm glad to see there, the feasibility study of improving the drainage system. So all in all, it's good to see that, you know, issues have been picked up and there are recommendations there. It'll just be interesting to see how it all progresses. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, and I'll go to Councillor McClelland.
Okay, Chair, thank you for letting me in, and I suppose I have a degree of sympathy for all of the comments from the previous two speakers, and would be supportive of their contributions. I suppose the issue that I would want to raise is around the compensation schemes that were rolled out, and especially as they impacted or indeed ended up did not impact some of the community and voluntary sector, because as an example, you have Anatona Maharali Young Farmers Hall was completely flooded, and as I understand it, they haven't been able to, or they weren't able to avail of any of the compensation schemes. So I think that going forward, and obviously there's no one wants to see such events again, but it's probably inevitable that there will be reoccurrences, but just it would be unfortunate if the community and voluntary sector were not to be included or were not able to avail of compensation schemes. So, you know, I think that that's important. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor McClelland, and I'll go to Councillor McElrath.
Thanks, Chair. Listen, I hadn't intended to make commentary on this because I think the officers, Gillian, Elizabeth and so on, Jonathan, they kind of knew my views from the outset, and I have relayed that probably in quite robust terms, certainly at the outset. It's very difficult to know whether I welcome the report or not. I'm just going to wait and see how it pans out, but I think it was a learning exercise for all of us, and I appreciate, and I think that I'm not trying to defend our officers in this one, because they know how, I suppose, frustrated I was at the particular time. Hopefully it's a one-off, but we do certainly need to learn, and I think the key point for me in all of it was communication, and I think I've relayed that numerous times, relayed to our officers, relayed to the inquiry as well in the strongest possible terms. And for an elected rep in the ground, it was communication, and some of the points that have already been alluded to by others, again, were raised. Let's hope and pray we don't get something like this again for some time. But if we do, I think we will, as a local council, be better prepared. I think we will, and we will be and should be. And I'm not sure that the overall report, I think there was a lot of different issues coming in, whether that be Newry or Banbridge or Downpatrick or wherever that happened to be, or some of our rural areas, with lots of different focus. Obviously, from our perspective, it was generally Portadown in the town, and there's some of those people still badly impacted. And as I say, my commentary has been probably well documented already. I'll probably not say a whole lot more on it, but listen, let's hope and pray we don't have this situation for some time again. But others were making some comments. I felt that in fairness to our officers, once we got over the initial sort of impact, council did do their very best to follow up. It was that initial period was the problem. But again, thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor McElrath, and you're right, it was just that initial start period where everything seemed to be a wee bit haywire. I'm just going to go to Gillian now to give us a wee brief.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, members, for feeding back into this. You will see that many of the issues, in fact, all of the issues you raise have been included into the recommendations of the report. And as things stand, floodline is the contact point for anything that might happen in the future. But certainly there are recommendations around the sharing of that information, information around sandbags, and all of the work that needs to be taken forward. So local government does have representatives on some of the groups that are taking forward the recommendations. And if at any time members want an update on any of those actions, we can of course bring that back later on in the year. Hopefully we will see some improvement. And I think the challenge for all of us is that flooding is something which we have to come to terms with, albeit it is absolutely devastating for those that have been affected. And that's where a lot of the community resilience work comes in. And you'll see that that's a very strong recommendation as well around community and business resilience. So members, if at any time there's anything you want to follow up, we will of course endeavour to keep you updated on this. Thank you.
Thank you, Gillian. If we have no more questions then, we'll move on to decision item 4.1. And we're going to need to seek a proposer and a seconder for this one as well. And I'm going to go to Marcus for this one. Or where is he? Here.
Water quality improvement strand. Members are asked to agree the letter of offer dated 5th of July from the DAERA Environment Fund Water Quality Improvement Strand, and to note that no financial contribution is required for implementation. So we have a letter of offer dated the 5th of July 2024, which was received for £14,200 for some scoping and work on the Lagan River Survey Initiative. There's 4 elements to it. One is a full site survey of a section of the River Lagan. We're also inaugurating a small citizen science programme for local people to engage and empower the community to increase their understanding of the water environment. A media and publicity campaign aimed at inspiring the public to become involved in protecting our rivers and associated water bodies, and also the development of an education programme aimed at key stage 2 pupils from local schools. And contractors and staff and the ABC biodiversity team will carry out the work.
Thank you. So go to Councillor Johnson.
Thank you, Chair. I think it's really positive to see us coming through. It sounds like a great initiative as a starting point to the wider Peace Plus bid. So thank you to the biodiversity team for putting the application for the funding in. Can I just ask what stretch of that 10 kilometres of the River Lagan that might be, and sort of a bit more detail around what the site survey might carry out, but happy to propose, Chair. Thank you.
we'll be working close to Dromore. We've had some pre-engagement with the community groups and particularly angling clubs that are involved in the lagoon. So part of the scoping is to decide where we're going to do the full survey, but we'll probably be working upstream of Dromore for the most part, and this will form part of the larger project which we're in a bid for.
Thank you. And I'll go to Alderman Moutray.
Thank you, Chair. My question was along the same vein as Councillor Johnston's, but that has been answered. Can I just ask why the River Lagan was chosen as opposed to anywhere else in the borough? And I have no issue with that, but just to inform me, but in the background to the paper, it refers to the sources of especially phosphate and nitrate. The sources are a combination of agriculture, septic tanks, and sewage works. Would the officer agree with me that there are many other sources as well, such as industrial pollution, invasive species, and water flow?
Councillor, first, to answer your first part of the question, the River Lagan was really chosen for us as part of the Peace Plus bid. The Department of Agriculture specified the rivers that we could do some work on. These included the Fane, the Blackwater, and the Lagan. We have already had letters of offer, which we presented to you, for both the Blackwater and the Fane. So this was our third opportunity to undertake some work on the River Lagan. So that's why it was so chosen. Unfortunately, the River Ban was not included in the department's plan for Peace Plus. To answer your second part of your question, I'd agree wholeheartedly. There are a number of other pressing problems on the Lagan, not least the invasive species that you mentioned, and industrial waste as well. So I can really agree with you on that point.
Thank you, Marcus. Alderman Moutray, were you seconding there, or? And I'll bring in Councillor McClellan then.
Yes, indeed, Chair. Thank you for letting me in. And I suppose I'll start off by agreeing with my colleague Alderman Moutray. I suppose it is to a point a balanced report in that it's not singling out agriculture as the main villain. So I think Alderman Moutray makes a very, very good point, and it's good that Marcus has agreed with that. I think it's also good in terms of the four parts of this, but it is good and positive to the point where a balanced interpretation is given when these four parts are rolled out. Well, I suppose that maybe doesn't apply to the first part because a survey is a survey, but I'm talking about where we interact with the small citizen science program, the media and the publicity campaign, and the development of the education program for the key stage 2. I think it's important that a balanced and fair interpretation is given, that there are multiple issues, that there are multiple sources. So I couldn't emphasize, I couldn't highlight enough the importance of how those are rolled out in a fair manner. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, councillor McLeod, and thank you for that report, Marcus. We'll move on to 4.2, which is the grant award for the Shared Island Fund Community Climate Action Fund Strand 1A, and we'll go back to Marcus for that report.
This is a grant award from the Shared Island Fund, Community Climate Action Fund Strand 1A. Members are asked to agree to accept the letter of offer administered by Monaghan County Council under the Shared Island Fund. So the biodiversity team and their partner, Castleblaney Community Enterprise, CLG, made a successful application and an equal grant was awarded to both partners. The detail is that the letter of offer includes €30,171 for each partner, and specifically for ABC, it's for the inclusion of bicycle racks to encourage the switch from car use, water refill stations to reduce the use of single-use plastic, and equipment for a community garden to promote reduced food waste and awareness of food packaging. The project will also help low-income families to eat less ultra-processed food and to benefit from more fresh vegetables in their diet. So the recommendation is that members are asked to agree the letter of offer administered by Monaghan County Council under the Shared Island Fund.
Thank you, Marcus. I need a proposer and a seconder for this one, and I'm going to Alderman Barr first.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and happy to propose. I'm just wondering, could I ask a couple of questions? Do we have locations for the installation of the water bottle refill stations? Can I be furnished with them before I go on to my next question? And then sort of the garden, the equipment for the community garden, which is absolutely fantastic. How do we get that food out? Does that go out to the food banks or is it distributed in a different way? I'm just sort of curious on that there, but I have a question on the bounce of that there, if you don't mind, please.
To the bicycle racks, they're going to be installed in Cantermore Gardens, and suitable locations yet to be chosen in central Craigavon. In terms of this equipment for the community garden, that will be based at the Bushcraft Centre, and the Bushcraft Centre will take that forward and do the engagement with the local community.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just sort of the locations of the water bottle refill stations.
Those have yet to be chosen in Craigavon Centre. There'll be somewhere within Craigavon, greater Craigavon area.
Thank you, Madam Chair, for letting me back in. So yeah, so they're not being spread across the borough is sort of what we're talking about here. Do we have water refill stations in place throughout the borough from the council? Because it's either or. It's either former councillor Declan McLinden or current councillor Thomas O'Hanlon brought forward a notice of motion that we install these throughout the borough. I just maybe on top of, so that's why I was kind of thinking this was part of that, and that's why the bid was for that. I'm happy enough with it, but I would like to see it expanded in line with the notice of motion, and if possible, if we could track down that notice of motion and whichever councillor it was, could they be involved with that? Because I think it's, whoever sort of brings these things forward should get the pat in the back for it rather than somebody else.
Thank you. Good evening, members. Just in relation to Alderman Barr's question, then absolutely right, there was motion and that was reported through committee, and there were a number of update reports then brought back, including costs associated with the installation of bottle refill stations. I think this is part of a wider rollout as and when we are able to get grant funding to install such infrastructure, then we will avail of that. So over a period of time, I would like to think the rollout of this would be wider than the central Craigavon, that would attract all our major parks and open spaces. And again, we would look to try and maximize the funding opportunities to actually reduce the impact on revenue and capital estimates in that regard.
Thank you, Jonathan. I'll go to Alderman Berry.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In principle, I've nothing against it, but from speaking or listening to officers over the years in relation to us taking on funded schemes, the question comes back from officers in relation to who maintains this. So in relation to the basic racks, I don't imagine there'll be much maintenance with that, but with the like of the 3 water bottle refill stations, if they're damaged or vandalised, I take it we pick up the tab. And I think that's where I would caution, because it's all right if it's something that's not going to be hard to maintain and look after, but constantly we're being told by officers that resources are stretched, and every new programme and project that we take on, we're stretching our officers' time, commitment and staff resources. So I'm only throwing that out as a, just as a reminder that that's what we're constantly being told. The water bottle refill stations, that was brought up previously, as Alderman Barr has said, but it's all right getting the 100% funding for it, but it's who maintains it. And if we don't maintain it, then do they lie dormant? And then do we have to remove them? And then that's bad press. In relation to the equipment for the community garden, there again, that should be easy maintained, but it's something that we're getting funded that we're going to have to pick the tab up in the future. And it's just something that I'm flagging up. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Berry, and I'll go to Councillor Hockin.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. It's a strange night when 100% funding creates such a negative outlook, but I do give credit to some of the comments. They're probably those words of an experienced councillor. I don't think he seconded it, so I'm happy to second that for the record. And I think I'm glad to see Bushcraft in particular gaining something from this. I know they do a lot of work through the detached youth work in Lurgan and beyond, so it's good to see them getting a wee bit of support. But yeah, happy to second. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Hockin, and I'll go to Councillor McElrath.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Marcus, for the report. And Councillor Hockin, no, I'm certainly not going to be critical at all, but just on a side, there's always a but on the side from this, and it is a point the Councillor or Alderman Berry raised about maintenance. And as one who uses the towpath regularly, and as I see hundreds, if not thousands, of people, families, elderly, using the towpath, there is a maintenance cost there, and some of the issues on it, signage, even some of our bridges are probably. And as we do consider making applications for funding, bearing in mind it's from Shillingtons to the Canal Basin in Newry and cross-border, and as we think of some of these funds that are Peace Plus and so on, perhaps the towpath, and I mean, let's think about it, it's probably the most significant greenway that we have in the borough, right from Acton Lake through Scarva Locks, down to Moneypennies and into Shillingtons. What a fantastic resource we have. And I know we talk about our parks, and we've some brilliant parks, and we've done some brilliant work around our parks, but the towpath's another hidden gem. And let's not forget the number of people that are using it and so on. So as we think about funding going forward, and I know it's cross-cutting, as some of the other, maybe perhaps tourism and so on, comes in there as well. But there's a maintenance aspect that falls back to this committee. So if we can keep our maintenance up, that saves us some money as well. So it's just it's a wee side point just going forward. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor McElrath. And you still have your coat on, so I assume that's faith that you think I'm going to get through this tonight without messing up. I'll go to Alderman Greenfield then.
Thank you, Chair. I know it's been already proposed and seconded. I want to welcome this report. I think it's a good initiative, and just there's a bit of discussion around the water bottle refill stations, but just to point out that I was involved in the conversation at the time, and thankfully Banbridge is always leads the way. We already have a new water bottle refill station. I'm not sure if everyone's seen it yet, but it's a fantastic job, completely hands-free right down the town as part of our new public realm. So hopefully there will be some more of them across the borough for, I think, and I remember at the time it came back and we did talk about, you know, when funding opportunities arrive. So thankfully that was kept in the forefront, and as we come near the end of our public realm, which is taking great shape, there's one there, it's operational already, so it's good to see. And when people are out doing walks around Solitude, they come into the town, it's in the town centre, so hopefully it'll continue. So thank you, Chair.
Thank you. And we're moving on to 4.3, which is just for information if we don't have any questions. Does he want to come in? Yep. Where is he? Second one.
Go ahead. Evening members, and thank you, Chair. Chair, mindful this is an information item, but I know that a number of members are interested in this. Members will be aware of the collaborative working policy whereby we allow sporting, or we get into an arrangement with sporting organisations to allow them more control over the facilities that they use. We had previously run a call for the collaborative working policy, and it was subject to a legal challenge. Therefore, we had advised members that we would take the summer and we would look through working with legal advice from Carson Madole, and we would develop up a review and develop a new process. Which we want to announce then that we're ready to open the call for expression of interest on the new process. It will begin on the 9th of September, this coming Monday. We will publicise it extensively through social media, but we will also contact every user of our online booking facility through an email, then inviting them to become involved in the process. We're hoping then, Chair, that there will be a 4-week window then for people to submit the expression of interest. We would then take a week to assess them as officers, and then we would hope to bring a report to the November meeting. We would then hope, Chair, that we would be having whittled down the number of clubs that would be eligible. Then we work with them on the business planning process in the next 2 months then, and then bring further recommendations back to committee in the early part of next year. That would be in time then for leases to be in place for the new financial year, giving plenty of time then for clubs to make whatever changes that are maybe needed for the new season, the 25-26 season in September.
Thank you, Marty. And if there's no questions, we'll move on then. Members and online viewers, in accordance with Schedule 6 of the Local Government Act, we will now be moving into confidential session of the council. This means that we will be turning off the public feed of the meeting. This will be returned when the meeting is restarted. Can I have a proposer and a seconder? Oh, plenty of hands there. Thank you. And can I ask the ICT officers to please turn off the feed and confirm with me when the confidential section of this meeting can proceed? Okay, and I seek a proposer and a seconder to agree with the recommendations made in committee. Okay. So there are no items of correspondence and there is no other business. So that concludes our meeting for tonight. Thank you all and safe home.